It is Saturday 28th of September 2024 and exactly 6 years ago today I started the London Loop, a 150-mile orbital path around London. A year later, once I had finished, I started the Capital Ring, a similar orbital path but only 78 miles in length, and ever since I've kept up the tradition of doing some sort of anniversary walk around that time. In 2020 I did a section of the Green Chain Walk. That's a similar long distance footpath which shares a lot of its route with the Capital Ring, but I did a unique route through to Erith, which is where the London Loop begins. In 2021 I walked the Dulwich Valley Green Walk, which links the Capital Ring and London Loop in North London via the Dulwich Brook. In 2022 I redid a section of the London Loop on a walk from Cannons Park to Moore Park, and in 2023 I continued that section on a walk from Ruislip to Harefield West, doing the section beyond Moore Park. I've noticed that recently I focused more on the London Loop with these walks, so this year I'm going to focus on the Capital Ring. But I'm not just going to redo a section, I'm going to explore some new places as well along the way, which is why I await my train to start my walk at Kidbrooke. Kidbrooke in southeast London in recent years has undergone a lot of new development. There's even a new station building to reflect that. About 5 years ago, a new bus route was introduced to this area, the 335, which links Kidbrooke with North Greenwich. And I remember doing that route and exploring Kidbrooke for the first time. And so it's quite exciting for me to be back here quite a few years later. And we start the walk off in Cater Park. If you look on Google Street View in this area, it will still show what was here before. The 1960s Ferry estate. This is much nicer to walk through nowadays. But even before that was a thing, this whole area was part of an RAF site, RAF Kidbrooke. I find it funny how they call this new development Kidbrooke Village, because it's just not what a village feels like to me. It's not your typical tiny little place with a church and pub on the corner. I've noticed the sign up here, by the way, has the National Rail symbol backwards. If you head on south through Cater Park, you get to Sutcliffe Park, which has a very natural wetlands feel about it. In fact, you have the brilliantly named River Quaggy, which passes through here. The River Quaggy used to pass through here underground, but in recent years has been daylighted. That's the term, when they bring back a river to the surface. If you head south along the River Quaggy, you'll find that it changes names. It becomes the Kidbrooke, but it's nowhere near where we are now in Kidbrooke. And it also is spelt differently. Spelt with a Y, has a space, but doesn't have the E at the end. Nearby though, there's another Kidbrooke, also not spelt entirely the same, does have the I, still there's a space, there's still no E at the end, and there's about 3 of them. There's an upper, mid and lower Kidbrooke, which all runs in to the River Quaggy. This is such a bizarre little urban jungle wetland area to walk through. I'll be very careful across the boardwalk though that you don't slip. As tranquil as Sutcliffe Park is to walk through, the reality of the capital sets in once you leave, as unfortunately there are quite a few busy roads around here which I'm now going to have to navigate my way through. Usually you'd have to head upstairs and down the other side if you were passing over a railway line. So whilst the B16 terminates in Kidbrooke, the B15 bus route terminates in the Horn Park estate. They both run to Bexleyheath, by the way, that's what the B stands for. But this isn't really a terminus, as buses actually just loop around the estate here before heading back along its route. It's a common trend with the B routes, a lot of them loop around at their terminus points. It's a very faded sign, by the way, you can hardly see the route number. And if I was walking through the Horn Park estate, I might as well visit the actual Horn Park, which midday on a Saturday is very quiet. Got another busy road here to cross, but just before I do, I wanted to come and have a look at the Dutch house, because it's quite an interesting little building, isn't it? This was a pub built for the Horn Park estate when it was being constructed in the 1930s. I'm hearing running water down here, and I'm thinking that might be a little branch of the River Quaggy, potentially. Once over the road, you come onto what feels like a bit of an unofficial footpath, which takes you over the River Quaggy as it's passing through a culvert here. This place which I'm passing through seems to have quite a few different names, from Great Meadow to Harmony Wood and to Sidcup Road grasslands. You almost wouldn't know that path existed. It feels like a place only the locals know about. But on the other side of it, it finally brings me out onto the Capital Ring path. But I'm heading this way, over the railway line. Once over the railway, I saw some donkeys in a field just off of the Capital Ring path, so I thought I'd go and have a look at them. One of them, whilst I was there, started eating the fence, and the other scratched their head against a post. There were some horses too, one of them with an unusual moustache. I remember this part of the Capital Ring because it did feel quite rural with a couple of farms, but it's still very obviously London because, well, you've got a great viewpoint of it all. The city, I'd say Canary Wharf, but actually Kidbrooke's kind of been built in front of it now. Now the Capital Ring turns right here, but I'm actually quickly going to come off of the path and head down here instead, just for the sake of visiting another green space in London, which I wouldn't have had the chance to do before, as I would have stuck to the Capital Ring. And I'll loop around and come out that path opposite before then heading up that way. Oh, I love this classic red telephone box here with no glass panes at all, just before I head into Queen's Croft Recreation Ground. And once through the delightful Queen's Croft Park, I've looped around and ready to get back en route towards Eltham Palace. So Eltham Palace was once a royal palace. In fact, Horn Park, where we were earlier, was part of the deer park attached to the estate. I love the Tudor framed building over there as well. We're not going to go in and see Eltham Palace properly. It's part of English heritage, you do have to pay to go in, and we're focusing on our walk, but I want to draw your attention to the Capital Ring sign outside of the palace, because it gives you a great example of how the Green Chain and the Capital Ring are inextricably linked, which I mentioned at the beginning. I like these maps that you get along the Green Chain walk. Shows how convoluted it is. That's why it's called the Green Chain. There's a little stretch out to Erith, which I did 4 years ago, was it? The Capital Ring goes on a bit of a longer route around some more green spaces, but I'm going to do a bit of a shortcut through Eltham. Up from the high street you reach Eltham Station, which was built in 1985 and replaced 2 stations on either side of this current one. At the same time, the busy A2 road was built in a tunnel underneath the station and bus station. I remember having to come here a few times when I was doing all of the bus routes, and there's something I passed on one of them nearby which I've always wanted to go and visit. So one of the stations Eltham replaced was Well Hall, and Well Hall Pleasaunce here is where I passed by on the bus and thought I would like to go in there one day. because it's a really nice garden area. So there did indeed used to be a Well Hall manor house around here. This is really nice to walk through nowadays. I think this is a Tudor barn over there. I love that it's surrounded by a moat. I've made it back onto the Capital Ring path now as I enter part of Oxley's woodlands, which leads through to Eltham Common. And in here is something very special which we're going to visit. Ooh, well that was quite a steep path up, but I've made it now to the brilliantly named Severndroog Castle on top nearby to Shooter's Hill. This feels like quite a hidden castle of London, tucked away in the woods. I feel like not many people make the journey here to come and see it. Just realised, because I'm on the first section of the Capital Ring, that the one and only time I've ever come to Severndroog Castle was exactly 5 years ago today. I'm going to be doing a bit of a more direct route towards Woolwich, so I'm going to be missing out another part of the Capital Ring. But that part in particular is quite nice. It passes through Marion Park, which kind of has like almost a city farm, and I remember seeing chickens there. After I'd finished the London Loop, I wasn't too sure whether I was actually going to do the Capital Ring, as a lot of places along its route I had visited before, like Wimbledon Common, or along the Parkland Walk, or the Greenway, North and East London respectively. But I decided that I would actually like to revisit them places, as they're nice places to visit. What I was always going to do though was this first section of the Capital Ring, because I really wanted to explore a lot of the woodlands around this area. And I would say that this is one of the great London walks. It passes through some very interesting places like Severndroog Castle and Eltham Palace. Down from the castle through the woods and across the road brings you out to another brilliantly named King George's Field. This is a curious old building, isn't it? It's huge. Tucked away behind Shooter's Hill Road, you have what I think is just called London Water Tower. It belonged to the grounds of Brook Fever Hospital, which is no longer here. Nowadays you got Queen Elizabeth Hospital nearby. I wonder if that old building nearby was part of the grounds of that hospital. Clearly at some point an extension was built and has now become someone's house. It's quite cool. Live right by an old water tower. I'm getting my first indication that I'm nearing Woolwich as I pass over Woolwich Common. I remember thinking when I did the Capital Ring that it's a bit of a shame that the route doesn't come across here that much, so I'm glad I got the opportunity to do that today. Across Woolwich Common and to a bus stop on a road which is London's funniest. So why is it called Ha Ha Road then? Well, it's named after this, a ha-ha. But what is a ha-ha? It is a ditch used to protect a property. In this case, it will be the Royal Artillery Barracks. So this is all MOD property, but it does seem like I'm allowed to walk through here. To emphasise that point, of course, there's a huge cannon. It's a curious rotunda-shaped building here. I believe it's a museum nowadays. It feels quite strange that there's actually just a little community tucked away behind this land as well. And whilst in the area, I of course have to come and get a shot of the Royal Artillery Barracks. Never walked past here before. Always wanted to though. It's a huge building, isn't it? It's very impressive. Also, wasn't it on Barracks Field behind me here where a lot of the shooting took place during the London 2012 Olympics? Fairly certain this was where it took place, right? Them events? I've made it into Woolwich town centre now. That's General Gordon Square over there. In all the times I've been here, I've never noticed the old tram shed here. You can tell when you enter an area like this that it had been pedestrianised at some point. Remember that there was a fountain here, or at least water would run down this part of the square, but right now, I guess with all the market on, they've made it dry. I can't come to Woolwich and not walk up to go and see the mighty River Thames. And this is actually where the capital ring begins. So exactly 5 years ago today, I set off on that walk. You can see direction signs to Richmond Bridge, 35 miles and 43 miles combined. That is the full 78. And to connect from the north side to the south side of the river, the capital ring passes through this building behind me, which is the entrance to the Woolwich foot tunnel. It's nice for me to be back at this point, because without walking the London Loop and the capital ring, it wouldn't have evolved into the walks and adventures that I do nowadays. And so in a way, kind of started at Erith, but it also started here with the capital ring. And I want to head over to the north side of the river where the capital ring ends, but instead of taking the foot tunnel, I'm going to catch that boat that I've just missed behind me. So not only can you walk under the Thames here through a foot tunnel, but you can catch a free ferry service across to the other side as well. Because of a lack of bridges in East London, this is as close as an alternative as you get, and technically is the link between the North Circular and the South Circular roads. It's been quite some time since I last went on the Woolwich ferry, because during the last 3 years, any time I was in Woolwich, it just wasn't running. Last time I think I caught the last boat of the night. It was dark. This time I get to do it during sunset. I remember the old boats as well. They didn't have level boarding, you had to go down a set of stairs, and was a completely different experience to what the new boats are nowadays. But it's a really cool experience to do, and if you've never gone on the Woolwich ferry in London, just do it for the sake of it one day. I've made it to the north side and the end of the capital ring. I've always liked this part just because it feels so quiet, especially as this street here is technically the North Circular Road. Though there's a lot of changes taking place. I mean, I remember when them apartments being built in front of me was just rubble, and you could essentially stand on it. The last time I would have been here was when I rode this bus route, and in fact all of the Superloop routes around London. What has stood the test of time though, despite all of the changes around here, although no longer in use, is this building. The old North Woolwich station, the terminus of the North London line, soon to be the Mildmay line, which closed back in 2006. Time jump back to the south side of the river. There is actually an old footpath direction sign still in place for North Woolwich station. Now, because North Woolwich station no longer exists, I've walked up the road to the best named DLR station, not Mudchute, King George V, where I am ending the walk. That was such an enjoyable walk for me around southeast London, probably my favourite quadrant of London to walk through, that and the Royal Docks nearby on this side of the Thames. This was the original terminus of this DLR line, much like North Woolwich, and the Elizabeth line, which now uses a lot of the route of that old railway to North Woolwich. That and the DLR now both head under the Thames to Woolwich itself. My favourite thing about this station though is despite the fact that Woolwich is the next stop, the platform announcements here, when a train is ready to pull in, says that the train is going to Woolwich Arsenal via London City Airport, despite the fact that the train has already passed through London City Airport.
The next train at platform 1 is for Woolwich Arsenal via London City Airport.
If I slip now, that would be a hilarious outtake.